for all of the details on the injury. But if this is something that causes him to miss significant time, what does this mean for the Warriors championship window?
It's over. It's over, Greeny. It's, for a while until Klay gets back. Now, I was reading last night that, people were saying that it was an Achilles injury. I cannot confirm that as of right now. But if it is an Achilles injury on his right leg, from somebody who's had a left leg injury, there's a tendency for you to compensate when you have an injury. So if you were to compensate, have that right Achilles injury, that takes a while to come back from. We're going to see Kevin Durant come back off an Achilles injury, but he's also had a year and a half now. Klay got hurt, a couple of years ago when you think about when they played against Toronto. So that's really painful for me. And then if you take that to the draft, last night I'm at the draft and I'm sitting there saying, hey, look, if this is the case with Klay, and it's obviously hard to figure out what the details of his injury are going to be. And I know everybody says stay the course with James Wiseman, but I really thought they had a chance to either trade the pick, still get a big from the Chicago Bulls, maybe get the 4th pick in the draft and get a guy like Denny Avdija. I always butcher his last name from overseas, but he's 6'8", 6'9", a bigger guard that can defend and play that 3 position. Or you go with a guy like LaMelo Ball, even though he's not great defensively, but it allows Steph to play with another playmaker because that's what makes Steph. We've seen Steph play when it hasn't been with Klay, and that puts a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. I'm not saying he's a superstar. He can handle it, Greeny, but the volume in which you need him to do that typically has led to him being injured as well. So without, because Andrew Wiggins is good, but you're talking about them finishing maybe 6th or 7th in the Western Conference as opposed to finishing, 3rd or 4th.
So we will get details on that later today. Again, he's scheduled to have the MRI late this morning, Western Coast time, and we will wait and see what we get as far as details on that. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, the Warriors did make that pick at number 2, and they did take James Wiseman. Let me take you through the top of the NBA draft last night. As expected, Anthony Edwards from Georgia went number 1. He's the 5th SEC player drafted first overall since 2010. He goes to Minnesota. The Warriors, they are taking James Wiseman, who played just 3 games in college. He is the 7'1" big. That was expected, and then so was this. Charlotte taking LaMelo Ball. Basketball has taken him all over the world, and now it takes him to the Hornets, where he will play for Michael Jordan. And so you were just saying, Jay Will, that you thought that maybe, and they didn't have a lot of time to react to this. Again, the news of the injury to Klay Thompson comes something like 2 hours, maybe even less, before the draft last night. What else happened last night that stood out to you? I'm giving you a sort of a blank slate here. What to you was the number 1 storyline coming out of the draft last night?
I thought Daryl Morey made moves for the 76ers.
Yeah.
I mean, they moved Al Horford. They moved Josh Richardson. They got Seth Curry, who is the son-in-law of Doc Rivers. This team needs shooting. They added Terrence Ferguson, who played overseas, who's a big-time wing who can shoot the ball well as well. And they landed Tyrese Maxey. If you're going to stick with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, you needed to surround them with pieces. You bring in Doc Rivers to unlock Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris had one of his best years playing with Doc in LA, and now adding shooting around those guys. I mean, look, Seth Curry is on pace to be one of the best shooters that we've seen in the history of the game from a career 3-point field goal percentage, stat. So, look, I think Daryl Morey, and I still think they're making moves. I still think there's some moves for Daryl Morey and company to make, but the 76ers find themselves in a great position moving forward.
I think I agree with you, and let's live there for a minute. Seth Curry, I think, frequently gets completely overlooked because he's overshadowed by his brother, who is one of the greatest players of all time. But he is a great shooter, and Green obviously is a 3-and-D guy, and you put them on the floor with the big 3 they've put together in Philadelphia and the new coach. In your mind, as currently constituted, is that a team that wins the Eastern Conference?
I'm still not going to have them as a favorite to beat the Nets and the